Thank you. It's a tremendous pleasure to have lived through 3 such exciting afternoons for me. It'll be morning or days for other people. And it's just been inspiring and a delight, really, to have this huge general meeting online again this year. Next slide, please. I just want to start off by saying a massive, massive thank you to everybody. You can see the reactions from social media here. Mainly, I want to say a huge shout out to all the session chairs, all of the panelists. You know, we've just had a great panel, but over all 3 days, there have been incredible talks, incredible chairing, superb, inspiring panels, and of course, last but not least, the biological network coordinators who made fantastic booths and sessions and breakouts. I think the community has really moved forwards through your work. So just massive, massive thank you for your leadership in all the biological networks. Next slide. And of course, we couldn't have done this without our meeting supporters, the Trans Zuckerberg Initiative, Welcome, Kavli, Helmsley, and the Klarman Family Foundation. Thank you. Next slide. The meeting poster committee, Holger Hein, John Randall, Stephanie Reichelt, Aki Minoda, and Alex Shalek. Thanks to you for your choices and support. Next slide, please. And thank you to the committee. It was just fantastic working with you. Christoph, Bock, Muslifa Hanefa, Holger Hein, Naftali Kaminsky, Priska Liberali, Musa Malanga, Aki Minoda, Martina Wayne, Donna Pear, Aviv Regev, and Farid Rosenblatt-Rosen, and me. I think it was a great fun working with everybody, and I'm super, super proud of the result. So thanks. Next slide, please. The planning team has done a superb job. I just want to say a massive, massive thank you. I would give you each like a bouquet of flowers in person, but let this be a virtual thank you to the superb team behind the scenes. And that's Yoshi Ando from the Human Cells Executive Office in Japan, Tracy Andrew, Anya Velasco, Luke Portes, John Randall, Stephanie Reichelt, Jenny Root, Christine Schwenk, Ellen Todris, and Sam Wynn from across the UK and USA executive offices, and the Nextech AR team. Thank you for your support. It was superb. It was the best conference platform I have ever seen over this pandemic, where we've been on so many virtual conference platforms. Really fantastic. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. And here you see the executive office staff that I've just mentioned. You can see all their faces, so you put names to faces. These are the people who continue to support the whole project and initiative globally going forwards. Next slide, please. It's been an amazing general meeting, the biggest ever, and in a way that's one of the nice sort of benefits of having these virtual meetings that we're forced to have nowadays, is that we had over 1,000 attendees, and compare that to the first meeting that I think it was just 100 or so.
93.
Yeah, so we had so we've increased our membership and our attendance tenfold, and that's been amazing. And thank you everybody for attending. Thank you for attending the breakouts and the productive discussions and advances in the community that have been made throughout these days. Next talk, please. Next slide, please. And here you can see the diversity of the attendees at this meeting. We've had PIs. You can see 437 there. Not sure if you can see my cursor, but there's all and postdocs and grad students, of course, but also many others: surgeons, software engineers, research scientists, pathologists. Welcome everybody, and thank you for attending. It's been amazing. And I will now hand over to Aviv to say a few words, and then Christoph. Thanks.
So Sarah's right. It was a meeting like no other, and virtual, yet we got to benefit in many, many ways because it was virtual, especially in this larger participation that is hard to do in person. We wanted to also summarize a few of the take-home messages that we heard over these days. We actually made this slide before we went on the final panel, so I'll say a couple of words on that as well. We've seen really substantial data growth in the HCA, spatial and multi-omics data, and this has really come up very clearly from the full speed at which the biological networks are working now and how focused they are on things like data integration. We're also starting to see the contributions to disease biology, One of the ways in which this was really prominent in this meeting is how HCA has contributed to the pandemic response with new insights on COVID-19. But we also heard a fantastic session on IBD and the gut, a common complex disease that afflicts people across the world and actually rises in prevalence, and the new insights that are coming from these kinds of approaches. The pandemic also shaped how HCA operates. We see it in this meeting itself. I think it expanded our reach in ways that were difficult for us in the purely physical world. It has an impact on solidifying our organizational structure of the biological networks, the demonstration of what the lung biological network managed to achieve in a few short weeks in the beginning of the pandemic really energized people to realize how much more we achieve through these kinds of structures, but it also emphasized how important integration and annotation are. And this really brings us to this forward-looking view of what's going to happen in the next year and a half towards the first draft, and then in the subsequent years towards a more complete version of the Atlas, and how critical consolidation, annotation, integration, and querying are going to be. And these are not easy things. As Dana said in the beginning of the previous panel, difficult problems, and we said difficult problems that matter. This is going to be the crux of the matter. And it's going to happen partly through the engagement of the biological networks with their specific biological expertise, but especially at the forefront, our analysis work, the leadership from our analysis working group, and the computational methods that are still needed in order to assemble the Atlas. We started seeing how those computational methods are playing in action, but there's still a long way to go. And then when we think about what's going to happen beyond that, we already have such vibrant activities around the pediatric and developmental atlas, as well as around human diversity. It's always been front and center in our minds, but we're now at the scale that we can really embrace human diversity also from an experimental point of view. And there's key roles here on the one hand for the development and the genetic diversity networks, but at the same time also for our equity and our ethics working groups, without whom we cannot really reach the populations of the world of different ages in different places in an appropriate, ethical, and equitable way. And then finally, as you heard, and I think that fits really well with the 2.0 and the 1.0 schemes, when people used to say spatial in the HCA, you know, in 2016, it was still somewhat aspirational, although methods were starting to be there. They were thinking in 2 dimensions and on genomic measurements, mostly. Today, when we are talking about spatial analysis, we're thinking about whole organs in 3 dimensions at every imaginable level of resolution, both molecularly and structurally. And that's what will be ultimately needed in order to have a complete atlas of the human body. Now, there were specials in the general meeting. Sarah said most of the thank yous. I just want to iterate them once more for those who actually did the science of the meeting, the session chairs, the speakers, the panelists, the coordinators of the bionetworks, the running of the bionetwork booth, and all of our participants and as panelists and chairs in the breakout sessions. That's what makes the meeting ultimately, and we're very grateful for all your contributions. If you missed anything, some of us had to wake up at 6 a.m., some of us had to stay very late at night. The HCA spans the whole globe. There are not 1 hour in the day that actually works for everyone, but all the recordings are available of the meeting's plenary session, and you can do this on the event platform until June 20th, and afterwards, of course, it will all show up on our YouTube channel. And what's really cool with our platform is that closed captioning is offered in over 60 languages. You can also obtain a meeting certificate. We used to give cool swag at the HCA. We will still give it in the future, but for now in the virtual world, you get the first certificate of attendance of an HCA meeting. You go to the resource tab and it's pretty clear from there. We really would appreciate you completing the survey. Running a meeting like this is also an experiment for us. We want to hear from you, and your feedback helps us make the meetings better, and it only takes 5 minutes to complete. There's also going to be additional HCA events coming up very soon on July 18th. There's an HCA Bionetwork seminar focusing on the oral, craniofacial, and the skin networks. Another virtual meeting that's coming up in August is the HCA Developmental and Pediatric Cell Atlas meeting. And as you know, that plays a key role in version 2 of the HCA. And in November 2021, still in virtual format, will be the annual HCA Asia meeting. And all of more details are available on the events part of the HCA website. And of course, we are very much hoping for a not only virtual future as people get increasingly vaccinated and hopefully COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2 get under control. And in Vienna, we are hoping to have an in-person meeting in 2022. We were cautious. We are waiting for a long time so that this would be a reality rather than a meeting that we have to flip to virtual later on. And Christoph Bock is here with us to say a couple of words on the meeting.
We've said this year's meeting was a meeting like no other. I hope that's also true for next year's meeting, but in a different way. I hope to welcome all of you to Vienna and to really meet in person again, to have conference breaks, coffee breaks. I used to say I go to the conferences for the coffee breaks, and the talks are basically in addition. I think we have become so successful at doing virtual programs that this is no longer true. We have managed to really have interesting discussions here, but I'm certainly eager to meet the people from the world, not just from Europe, people from the world again next year in Vienna. And I promise good wine, I promise the chocolate cake that the Beatles sang about, and many more reasons to stop by.
And look how beautiful it is. And you get to see people in 3 dimensions, including their limbs, and not just their, bobbing heads on the screen. We really look forward to it. And we also think that, this meeting is like a light at the end of a very long tunnel. Many people have persevered through a lot. We're all very grateful to be happy and healthy and vaccinated, and look forward to the meeting. And so come meet new colleagues. There's still a networking and social hour. It's at 12:30 Eastern time. We are hoping everyone will get to enjoy it a great deal. And I just want to close by thanking everyone for participating. Almost 2,000 people in one form or another showed up in this HCA meeting. That is unprecedented for us. And our first meeting was 93, because that was the number of chairs that were allowed in a room at the Wellcome Trust. And so a big difference for HCA now, many new people who didn't attend this meeting before. We thank each and every one of you for being part of the Human Cell Atlas. Thank you very much.